Okay, so today we're going to be talking about comparing decimals, and the objective is the student will compare in order two decimals to the thousands and represent comparisons using the symbols greater than, less than, or equal to. Now, it used to look like this in fourth grade. The students compared and ordered decimals to the hundreds. So we had 4 and 3 hundredths, we had 4 and 3 tenths, and then 4 and 13 hundredths. Now in fifth grade, this is how it's going to look. The students are going to compare and they're also going to order decimals, but this time they're doing it to the thousands place value. And if we look below, we have 5 and 7 tenths, 5 and 8 hundredths, and 5 and 9 thousandths. So what we're doing in fifth grade now, we're going an additional place value. Instead of just to the hundreds, we're going now to the thousands place value. In the future, it will look like this. The students will compare and order all rational numbers. So here's some non-negotiable strategies that you need to be aware of, that you need to be using, in the classroom, um, and take into consideration as you're planning your activities for the day. You're going to be required to have a think process time, and what the think process time does, it gives students um, 30 seconds to answer a question. 30 or between 30 seconds to a minute to answer the question. You're also we're going to be required to give them what's called structured talk time. And in structured talk time, the students are given about 1 to 2 minutes. They're going to be able to discuss the problem and solve it together with a partner. Think out loud. And with this, you're pretty much going over an example with the students, modeling your thought process out loud to solve the problem. So as you're going through the problem, you're thinking out loud. You're going to be required to use some randomization strategies. And with this, you can use various strategies for randomization, which these are these are just some examples of things that you can use. You can use popsicle sticks. You can use stickers. Student characteristics, for example, you can pick a student by shirt color, shoe color, birth month, and anything of that type. You can also use Class Dojo. But like I said, also you're not limited to just these strategies here. You can use whatever randomization strategies you feel most comfortable using. And then also practice time is very important. Also during this time, you're giving students an opportunity to practice problems after you have done some together as a class. Of course, you're not going to be required to use all of these during one class time, but you are required to use some of these during your lessons. And so we're going to begin here with comparing three numbers here. We have 5 and 7 tenths, 5 and 8 hundredths, and 5 and 9 thousandths. So whenever we're comparing, the first thing we're going to do is we're first going to stack up the numbers, which we have right here, and we're going to line up the decimals, which we did right here as well. In the beginning also, you may want to use or provide graph paper to the students to help them out with this. Because sometimes you have students who aren't very good about keeping their decimals lined up. And sometimes it's easier just to provide them with here, like what we have here, with some graph paper. So that way they're able to keep their numbers lined up, making sure that you tell them that they're only going to be able to put one digit in each space. That way, this will help them keep their information just neater and just more organized. But either one of these ways will work for the students. And then once the students have lined up the decimals, which we have here, they're lined up, have them write zeros in the empty spots. Use them as place savers. We're going to use zeros here. Because what happens many times, this is one of the biggest misconceptions that students have. They see a number that only has 2 digits. Oh, well, this is going to be my least amount. And oh, well, this one has 4 digits. Oh, well, this is going to be my greatest amount. That's the biggest misconception that they have. So it is very important that they put zeros in those empty spaces. So that way they have the same number of digits and they're able to compare. And then students also remind them to begin comparing on the left side when they're comparing numbers. So let me go back here. So let's go ahead and start with comparing this first number. So whenever we're comparing, we always begin with a digit on the left-hand side. And if we look at those digits there that we have circled, they're all the same. So we can't compare here. So we're just going to go ahead and cross those numbers out. Then that's when we go to the next set of numbers, we circle them, and then we can start comparing here. When we're looking at these numbers here, we can see that if we're ordering these from greatest to least, we're going to see that 7 is greater than 0. So this is going to be our greatest number here. So I just go ahead and label it with the 1 on the side. So since I'm done with this one, I'm just going to go ahead and just cross it out. So that way I know when I continue to compare, I'm not going to get these digits confused. Because since here we have two zeros here, we're going to have to go to the next set of numbers. But since we know this one's crossed out, we don't worry about that digit. We're just going to look at the 8 and the 0. So my next greatest number is going to be 8. And then it's going to be the 0. So now when we write these in order from greatest to least, we would write 5 and 7/10. Then we would write 5 and 8/100. And then the smallest number we have is going to be 5 and 9,000. So let's go to another example here. And here's is more of an example of a think aloud. And with this think aloud, I am gonna, you do want to give the students, make sure that you're giving them a think or process time. You may want to use some structured talk time and use some randomization strategies. Again, like I said, you don't have to use every single strategy for every lesson or for every problem. You just pick and choose which ones you want to use, just as long as you're using some throughout the lesson. So here we're just comparing two decimals, and we're going to have to decide whether these digits, whether 213 and 9/100 it's less than, greater than, or equal to 213 and 14 thousandths. So again, we're going to go over this problem and we're going to go over it together here. So I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds to talk to your partner and talk to them about what's the very first thing that we're going to do before we start solving the problem. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Ready? Begin. 3, 2, 1. If you have a yellow smiley face on your desk, please stand up. Okay, Maria, what's the first step? Okay, so we're going to we're going to stack up our numbers, and we're going to line up our decimals. Good. So we're going to make sure we are lining up our decimals and stacking up our numbers. Again, the students are going to be able to write their problems this way, or if you feel more comfortable having them use a graph coordinate grid paper, then have them use that instead. You have a choice between using the gridded paper or just having them use just regular paper. It's going to depend on you, or actually the student, on what they feel more comfortable using. And once the students get more comfortable using the gridded paper, then they'll be the transition to regular paper will be that much easier for them. All right, so now that we have our numbers stacked up here, what's the next thing that we're going to do? Joe, what's the next thing we're going to do? That's right. We're going to go ahead and put a 0 here in the empty space. Okay, now that we added the 0, what are we doing next, guys? All right, we're going to start comparing, and we do start comparing on the left-hand side here. So we're going to begin with the 2's here. So when we're looking at these numbers, these two numbers are the same, right? Since they're the same, we can't really compare here, so we're going to just go ahead and cross them out. We go to our next digit here. We have 1's again. They're the same, so we can't really compare here, so we're going to cross those out. We go to our next number here. Still the same. We can't compare there. Go to the next ones. We still have, if you look at our numbers, we have 0, we have 0, still the same, so we're going to go ahead and cross those out because they're still the same. We go to the next digit here. Now we have 9, and then we have 1. When we're comparing 9 to 1, 9 is what when compared to 1? 9 is greater than. We know that it's greater. So now we can move our greater than symbol into the space here. And we know now that 213 and 900ths, it's greater than 213 and 14 thousandths. Next problem we're doing is we're going to order from, we're doing as a whole class, we're going to order these from greatest to least. So again, what's the first thing that we're going to do before we begin doing anything? What is the first thing that we're going to do? Joe, what are we doing? It's correct. We're going to stack up our numbers and we're going to line up the decimals. Now this time I'm going to model this for you on the gridded paper here. So we have 2, our decimal, 0, 0, 7. Then we have 2, our decimal, 7, 1, 4. 2, our decimal, 0, 9. And then 2, decimal, 9, 7. And of course, now that when we have it on the gridded paper here, we have some empty spots. So what do we do with those empty spots, class? We are adding zeros in those empty spots. Now we can go ahead and begin here. And again, we're going to begin with our numbers on the left-hand side. When we look here, they're all the same. So we really can't compare. So we're going to go and circle our next digits here. And again, if we look, we have, not all of our numbers are the same. Some, they're different. So let's go look at our directions, and it's asking us to go from greatest to least. So we're going to look for greatest. So when we're looking at the numbers, we have 0, 7, 0, 9. We know that 1 is our greatest, so we know this one's going to be the first one. Okay. We're looking at this. Now we have 0, 7, and 0 left. Which one's greater? 7 is greater, right? So that's going to be our second greatest one. Now all we have left are 2 zeros, so we can't compare that. We've got to go to the next digit. So we're going to continue the next digits. And we know these two, we know we can't use these two because we already have them crossed out, so we're looking at the 0 and the 9. And in this case, 9 is greater, so that'll be our next one, and then 0 will be our last one. So now we can go ahead and write them from greatest to least. We're going to have 2, and 97 hundredths, 2 and 714 thousandths. Then we're going to have 2 and 9 hundredths. And finally, we're going to have 2 and 7 thousandths. Okay, now we're going to do one where we're going to practice now where the students are going to do one with, they're going to work it out with a partner. So what I would do here is, of course, I would, have one of the students read the problem. So here the problem reads, Tammy and Kathy are toucans at the city zoo. Tammy's beak is 8 and 75 hundredths inches long, and Kathy's beak is 8 and 4/10 inches long. Which toucan has the shorter beak? So after reading the problem, I would have a discussion with the students about, about what the problem is asking us. So, class, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys 30 seconds to talk with the person to your right and talk to them about what the question is asking you to do or look for. Ready? Begin. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right. If you're sitting at desk number 13, I'd like for you to answer this question. What is the question asking us to do? Okay. So yes, the question is asking us for the shorter beak, and what do they mean by the shorter beak? They're asking us about the shorter beak. What exactly do they mean by it? Are we looking for greatest, the greatest, the least, or the one that's equal to? Correct. They're looking for the least. So out of these two numbers, we're looking for which one of those is the least. Okay. So since we're looking for which one's the least, then remember the very first thing that we've got to do. Think about what you've got to do. But what I'm going to do for this problem though is I'm going to go ahead and let you practice it with a partner. I'm not going to help you out with it. I'm going to give you and your partner a couple of minutes to talk about the problem and work it out. And after a couple of minutes, I'm going to pick someone to go ahead and answer the problem for us. Go ahead and begin. Okay, so after giving them a few minutes to work out the problem, then you just want to go ahead and, use your randomization skills, the strategies, I'm sorry, that you normally use and have, a student answer the problem here. So, if you have a basketball sticker on your desk, please stand up. Okay, Angel, can you tell us what answer you and your partner came up with? Okay, so you're saying that 8 and 75 hundredths is greater than 8 and 4/10. Okay, so how did you and your partner come up with this answer? What did you and your partner do to answer the question? Okay, so you said you stacked up your numbers, and then you lined up your decimals, and then you compared. Okay, good. Does anyone in the room have anything different than what they got? Okay. Nancy, you said you have a different answer. What did you come up with? Oh, so you're saying that 8 and 75 hundredths is less than 8 and 4/10? Okay, so can you explain to me how you and your partner, got how you and your partner got that answer? All right, well, the correct answer is 8 and 75 hundredths is actually greater than 8 and 4 tenths. And so after going over a few problems with the students then, and just having, modeling some for them, and then them working some out together and going over them as a class, then I would give the students practice work. And practice work can either be with a partner. You do practice work with desktop travelers. You can use a scavenger hunt. You can even do stations. Usually, what I like to use more than anything when I do practice work, I like for the students to work with a partner because that way they're both, talking with, they're having that crucial those crucial conversations, and that way if one student has gets one answer and the other one gets a different answer, they're able to talk about it and come to a conclusion to see who actually has the correct answer. They're actually problem solving and figuring out the problem, together. After giving them some time to do some practice work, I usually give them about 20 minutes or so. Then I end up, finishing up the lesson. I close it up, and I usually close it, one way I close up the lesson is by doing an exit ticket, and I use post-it notes. And the purpose of the exit ticket is just to find out whether the students, understood the lesson or not. And in this situation, my ticket out would be compare the following numbers and write them from least to greatest. And I would use 2 and 100s, 2 and 110s, and 2 and 1000s. I would give them probably about the last, 5 minutes or so of class. And in order for them to leave the class, they have to have the problem answered. Um, this way, whenever as they're walking out the door and they're handing me their ticket, I'm able to see who understood the lesson and who didn't. And that way, I use that information to create my small groups for the next day. That way, I know which students I need to focus on.